It's a Tuesday, 4 years after the build, and nothing has happened. No war, no collapse, no sirens, no reason on earth to walk to the back of your property, lift a hatch, and climb down into the thing you spent a fortune on. The world outside is boring and fine. That was, after all, the entire point. You still remember why you built it. You can feel it the night you signed. The clean geometry of the plan on the table, the promise of it, reinforced walls, a door that could stop the world, filtered air, your own water, a generator breathing quietly in the dark while everything above ground came apart. You bought a feeling. The feeling was called ready. And yet this morning, there is a technician standing in your backyard because a rubber seal you have never once seen, on a door you've opened maybe twice, has dried out and cracked in the dark. Because the air filter that was supposed to save your life expired months ago, silently. While you slept in your house 40 feet above it, nothing tried to kill you. Nothing tested the walls. And the bunker still cost you money this week. You never used it. It used you anyway. Here's the thing nobody says out loud when they sell you one of these. On the outside, a bunker looks like the most final purchase you will ever make. One enormous check, one pour of concrete, and then safety. A box you own, a problem solved permanently. That's how it's sold, and that's how it's dreamed about. On the inside, it is something completely different. It is not a structure you buy. It is a state you rent. The concrete is just the entry fee. What you're actually paying for years, for decades, is the guarantee that on one specific unknown morning, everything down there works on the first try. And a guarantee like that doesn't come with a receipt. It comes with a standing order. Bought once. Rented forever. So let me tell you where this goes, because there are really only 3 ways it ends. Some bunkers do exactly what they promise. They sit ready, get used once or twice for a storm or a scare, and their owners count every dollar worth it. Some quietly bleed their owners for 20 years and are never needed at all, a slow, invisible tax on a fear that never arrived. And some destroy the people who built them not with a disaster, but with the discovery, far too late, that the thing they sank a life savings into cannot be maintained, cannot be insured, and cannot be sold. By the end of this, you'll know which of the 3 you're most likely to buy, because it isn't random. It's decided almost entirely by things the brochure never mentions, and by a bill that starts the day the concrete cures and never, ever stops. But first, bunker is one of those words that hides at least 3 completely different machines underneath it, and they do not cost the same to own. Not even close. Get this part wrong, and everything downstream is wrong. The first is the backyard shelter. Corrugated pipe, or a concrete box, dropped into a hole behind the house, bought by someone who intends to use it himself. The prepper's bunker practical, owner-maintained, relatively cheap to enter, advertised anywhere from $50,000 to a couple $100,000. The owner is the mechanic. If a filter needs changing, he changes it. The second is the turnkey luxury bunker. This is the dream in the brochure, a custom underground residence, professionally built, professionally finished, and, crucially, bought to hold rather than to operate. The owner isn't a mechanic. He's a client. He wants to write a check and be done. And this is the one this entire video is about. Because this is where the trap is deepest. The gap between I bought it and it works is widest for exactly the person least prepared to close it himself. The third is the share. You don't own a bunker. You own a unit inside one, a converted missile silo, a hardened condo managed by somebody else with a monthly bill attached like clockwork. It looks like the most expensive option. And in a way, it's the most honest one. Hold that thought. We're coming back to it, and when we do, it's going to rearrange everything. 3 machines, 3 cost structures. Most people who dream about a bunker are dreaming about the second one, the private fortress, that's theirs alone while unconsciously assuming it costs like the first and maintains itself like the third. It doesn't. It's the one that asks the most of you, for the longest, with the least honest warning. So let's price it, properly, from the first shovel. Start with the shovel, because even the digging is a decision. You're not putting up a shed. You are excavating a load-bearing hole in the earth and then building a structure inside it strong enough to hold the earth back for the rest of your life. Everything about that is expensive in ways a house never is. The concrete tells the story. Build a proper NBC-rated shelter, nuclear, biological, chemical, and you're looking at roughly $150 to $200 per square foot at the practical end, and $250 to over $450 a square foot. Once you move into the premium builders, before delivery, before installation, before the crane, those are recent numbers, the kind that drift with the price of steel and concrete, so read them as a shape, not a fixed quote. The shape is what matters. The more you want it to feel like a home, the faster it climbs. Now here's the part that surprises people in the wrong direction. You picture the blast door as the big-ticket item, the great slab of steel, the thing in every photograph, the whole fantasy of security made physical. It's one of the cheapest serious things you'll buy. A genuine multi-hour rated vault door, 5 inches of steel, can be had for under $4,000. The heaviest object you will ever install is close to the smallest line on the invoice. Sit with that, because it tells you where the money actually lives, not in the dramatic, one-time, photographable things. The door is cheap, the walls are a known quantity. What's expensive is everything that has to keep working. The systems, the air, the water, the power. The stuff that doesn't just sit there being strong, but has to run and wear out and be replaced. The entry fee is real, and it's large. A serious private build lands in the millions, and the most extravagant ones, indoor pools, libraries, a bar underground, have run past $9 million, with the single most lavish reported near 30. But underline this. The purchase price is the smallest number in the entire story. It's the one you'll be nostalgic for later. Because everything from here runs on a clock. So here's the machine at the center of it. One mechanism, and everything else is a consequence of it. A house degrades when you use it. Floors wear, roofs age, but broadly, the more you live in it, the more it earns its keep. A bunker is the opposite. A bunker degrades whether you touch it or not, and the entire time it's degrading, it has to stay instantly, perfectly ready for a day that hasn't come. You're not maintaining a place you live in. You're maintaining a state of readiness in a place you never go. That's a stranger, more expensive thing to own. Watch it work, system by system, because every one of them runs on a clock you don't control. The air is the clearest example. That NBC filtration system, the thing that makes a bunker and not a basement, isn't a purchase, it's a subscription. The unit runs a few thousand to $7,000. And then the replacement filters quietly ask $500 to $1,000 a year, forever. But money is the gentle part. The cruel part is the calendar. A sealed carbon filter has a shelf life measured in a handful of years, 3 to 5 in its packaging, 6 to 10 installed if you're lucky, and conditions are kind. It's aging in the dark right now, in a bunker nobody has entered in months, counting down to 0 whether or not the world ever gives it a reason to work. And here's the detail that should stop you cold. In the one scenario, the filter exists for a real chemical or biological event. The actual apocalypse you bought insurance against that carbon filter doesn't last years. It lasts somewhere between 24 and 72 hours. You spend a decade maintaining a lifeline, and when the moment finally arrives, it buys you a long weekend. The fuel tells the same story in a different language. You install a generator and stockpile diesel, so the lights and the air never stop. But diesel doesn't wait for you. Untreated, it starts breaking down in 6 to 12 months. Even babied with stabilizer, you're at 18 to 24. The fire codes for backup generators assume a fuel life of 1.5 to 2 years and tell you to size the tank so you burn through it before it turns. Which means the single most common reason a backup generator dies on the morning you finally need it isn't the machine. It's fuel that quietly rotted in the tank while it waited for a disaster that ran late. Do you see the shape now? Filters expire. Seals dry and crack. Fuel rots. Batteries cycle down. Stored food and medicine march toward their dates. None of it needs you to use it in order to fail. It fails on its own, on a schedule. And your only job, your permanent, unpaid, second job, is to sprint around resetting every one of those clocks before it hits 0. Miss one, and the whole promise is void at the exact instant it's called. An unmaintained bunker isn't a fortress. It's just a hole with expensive things rotting inside it. Bought once, rented forever, that's not a metaphor. That's the maintenance calendar. And this is exactly where the smart money thinks it's found a way around all of it and pays for the detour twice. Because once you understand the systems are the real cost, an obvious move suggests itself. Buy cheaper. Get the older unit, the decommissioned structure, the shelter someone else already dug. Put it where land is cheap, far out, remote, off the road. Skip the maintenance contract and do it yourself. You're not the sucker paying retail for the dream. You're the clever one who saw through it. Except every one of those savings is a cost in a disguise. The cheap, remote location is cheap because it's remote, and remote is precisely what turns every service call into a small expedition. The technician who swaps your filters and load tests your generator doesn't live out there either. Distance doesn't reduce the maintenance, it just staples a travel charge to every visit, forever. The older, used structure is cheaper because someone else already started its clocks. You're not buying a fresh bunker. You're buying one that's already partway through the aging you now inherit, seals stiffening. Systems already closer to their replacement dates on day one. And doing it yourself is only free if your time and your discipline are free. The entire failure mode of a bunker is the mist reset, the filter nobody swapped, the generator nobody ran, the fuel nobody rotated. Handing that job to yourself doesn't remove the risk. It moves the single point of failure from a contractor with a schedule to a busy human being who is, understandably, betting the disaster won't come this year. The cheap bunker is cheap for a reason, and the reason is always the same. It moves the cost from the line you can see to the line you can't, the one that bills you slowly, quietly, for as long as you own it. So far, everything we've counted, you can at least see coming. Now, the layer underneath the costs that don't show up in any builder's quote because they don't come from the builder. They come from the world above ground, and they arrive in a specific order, each one harder to escape than the last. Start with the paperwork, because before your fortress can protect you from society, it has to be approved by it. A serious underground build isn't one permit. It's a stack excavation, structural, electrical, mechanical, each with its own inspection. The generator drags fuel storage code in behind it. Diesel is a regulated combustible. There are hard caps on how much you can store on-site before the rules escalate into a harsher category, and underground fuel storage carries its own construction requirements. The thing you built for independence is, on paper, one of the most dependent structures you'll ever own, dependent on the approval of the exact system you were trying to opt out of. That's the first layer. Annoying, expensive, survivable. The second layer is insurance, and here it stops being annoying and turns structural. A bunker is very hard to insure well, because insurance runs on comparables, thousands of similar things, with a known history of what goes wrong, and there is no actuarial table for a private underground blast shelter. So standard homeowner policies often simply don't cover the structure. You need special riders, if you can get them at all. Worse, the bunker doesn't just fail to be an asset on the insurance ledger, it can become a liability. A hardened, hazardous space on your property is exposure. If anyone's hurt in it or around it, that's yours. You built a thing to reduce your risk, and the insurance market looks at it and prices new risk. Then the third layer, the one that's nearly impossible to climb back out of, the appraisal. When it's time to put a dollar value on what you built, the appraiser may look at a 6-figure, even 7-figure investment and assign it almost nothing. And I want to be honest about the limits of this claim, because it's easy to overstate there is no clean public index of private bunker resale values. The market's too thin, too secretive, too custom for anyone to have built one. But that absence isn't a gap in our knowledge, it is the finding. A thing with no comparables is a thing the financial world cannot see, cannot lend against, and cannot confidently price. You know exactly what you spent. Everyone whose job is to assign it a number just shrugs. Notice the escalation. The permits cost you money. The insurance costs you coverage. The appraisal costs you the thing itself. It quietly erases the number on the check you wrote. Each layer down, the exit gets narrower. Let me make this concrete, the way it actually plays out. Same bunker, same owner. 2 different decades. The only thing that changes is luck. And watch how far apart the 2 numbers end up. In the first version, everything goes right. You build, and then you're disciplined. Every year you go down, run the generator under load, swap the filters on schedule, rotate the fuel before it turns, cycle the food and batteries, check the seals. It costs a few thousand a year and a weekend of attention you'd rather spend elsewhere. Then one winter, a storm knocks the grid out for a week. And for one glorious stretch, the bunker is exactly what you dreamed. Warm, lit, sealed, self-sufficient, while the street goes dark. You climb out afterward, and every dollar feels repaid. This is the version in the brochure. It's real. It happens. Hold on to it. Now the second version. Same structure, same steel, same everything, but life got in the way. The maintenance slipped, the way maintenance does when nothing is going wrong. A year became 3. The service you kept meaning to schedule kept losing to more urgent things, because the whole problem with a bunker is that not maintaining it produces no symptom at all right up until the one moment it matters. And then the moment comes, and the generator coughs on rotted fuel and dies. Or the filter gives you its 72 hours and quits. Or the seal fails, and the one job the door had, it can't do. Same bunker. Different morning. And on that morning it isn't a shelter, it's a very expensive room you can't use, discovered at the worst possible second. Here's what I want you to actually look at. It isn't either of those numbers on its own. It's the distance between them. The same physical object, the same purchase price, can deliver total salvation or total failure. And the entire difference is invisible upkeep that gave no feedback either way for years. A house tells you when it's failing. It leaks, it creaks, it lets the cold in. A bunker says nothing. It looks identical in the good version and the catastrophic one, right until it's tested. Let that sit for a second. The gap between best case and worst case here isn't decided by how much you spent. It's decided by a filter change you either did or didn't do on an ordinary Tuesday, years before you'd ever know whether it mattered. And before you tell yourself you'd simply be the disciplined one that the failures happen to careless people and you are not careless, I want to close that door because it's the most dangerous thought in this entire subject. I'm not going to hand you a name and invent his bank statements. That isn't honest, and the private bunker world is far too closed for anyone to have clean numbers on individual owners. So take this as a pattern, not a person, but it's a pattern that recurs. Picture the owner who did everything right. Serious money, serious diligence. He didn't cheap out on the build. He read the manuals, kept the contracts, ran the drills. He understood the systems better than you or I ever will. By every measure, the responsible buyer this should happen to least. And the structure ground him down anyway, not through a single dramatic failure, but through the sheer, endless duration of the thing. Because readiness isn't a purchase you complete. It's a tax you pay in attention, and it never lowers the rate. 10 years in, 20. The filters still expire on schedule. The fuel still rots on schedule. The seals still crack. The codes change and demand upgrades to a structure that was compliant when it was poured. The competent owner doesn't get destroyed by incompetence. He gets destroyed by the fact that the machine asks the same thing of him forever, and a human being cannot hold the same tension forever. Somewhere in the second decade, the vigilance that was easy in year one is just heavy. And the bunker doesn't care how tired you are. It expires on its own schedule regardless. That's the third outcome from the fork, the one that destroys people who never saw it coming. It doesn't come for the foolish. It comes for the ones who understood everything except how long forever actually is. The disaster they prepared for stayed away. The preparation itself became the disaster, a slow one, spread across decades, disguised the whole time as responsible ownership. You don't beat that with intelligence. Nobody outsmarts a clock that never stops. And that raises the question that finally cracks this whole thing open. If a private bunker is this brutal to own bleeding money, impossible to insure, worthless on resale, demanding of vigilance, no human sustains for 30 years, then here's the question that should have been bothering you this whole time. Why do the people with the most money and the best information keep buying in anyway? They're not stupid. They have advisors. They can price this better than we can. So what do they understand that the dreamer doesn't? Here's the answer, and it turns the entire video inside out. Look back at that third type, the share, the unit inside somebody else's silo. The most famous version sells private apartments starting around $1 million, and then charges roughly $2,500 a month in dues on top. Call it $30,000 a year, every year, world-ending or not. When people first hear that dues number, they laugh. 30 grand a year? For an apartment underground you might never sleep in? For context, the average homeowners association in the country charges a couple $100s a month. This is more than 10 times that for a home you hope to never need. But now, after everything we've just walked through, look at that number again, because it isn't insane. It might be the only honest price on the entire market. That $30,000 a year isn't a ripoff. It's the true cost of readiness, finally printed on an invoice. The filters and the fuel rotation and the generator load tests and the seal inspections and the code upgrades and the staff and the insurance, the whole invisible second job of keeping a bunker actually ready, pooled, professionalized, and billed to you honestly in one line. Every month. The share owner isn't paying more than the private owner. He's paying the same true cost, he's just the only one of the two who can see it. That's the flip. The private bunker, the one in the fantasy, the one that's yours alone with no monthly bill, its great selling point was that you buy it once and you're free. But there is no version of readiness that you buy once. The dues don't vanish when there's no invoice. They just go quiet and become your problem, unbilled, uncounted, and far more likely to be skipped until the morning they come due all at once. The person paying $30,000 a year isn't the fool in this story. He's the one who understood that a bunker was never a thing you buy. It was always a thing you rent from reality, whether or not anyone sends you the bill. Bought once, rented forever. Except now you know who's really collecting the rent, and that the owner who thought he'd escaped the monthly payment was making it the entire time, in filters and fuel and cracked seals and lost sleep, just without the courtesy of a statement. The technician in your backyard on that quiet Tuesday? He wasn't an interruption to ownership. He was the invoice. He always was. Which brings us to the door nobody in the brochure will walk you to. Not the blast door, the exit. How, exactly, do you ever get out of this? Because a bunker has a liquidity problem arguably worse than its cost problem, and it comes down to 4 brutal questions. First, who is the next buyer? The pool of people who want a private underground shelter, can afford one, and want yours specifically, your location? Your taste is vanishingly small to begin with. And it shrinks with every custom choice you made, because the more perfectly the bunker fits you, the less it fits anyone else. Second, how long to sell? Not weeks, the way a normal home moves. A thing with a buyer pool that thin can sit for months or years, and the cruelest part is the maintenance clock doesn't pause while you wait. The filters keep expiring, the fuel keeps rotting, the readiness keeps costing. You are paying to maintain an asset for the privilege of trying to get rid of it. Third, how much of what you spent comes back? Grim. The improvements that cost the most, the deep personalization, the bespoke systems recover the least, because every dollar of customization narrows that buyer pool again. On a normal house, a great renovation adds value. On a bunker, the more you made it yours, the more you subtracted from what anyone else will pay. Fourth, and the one that swallows the other 3, what does anyone price it against? There are no comparables. And I'll be straight about how far that reaches. It's not merely that resale is low, it's that there's often no honest way to establish a number at all. An appraiser can look at a genuine 6-figure build and assign it almost nothing, not out of malice, but because value means what a comparable buyer recently paid. And that transaction may simply not exist. A bank can't lend confidently against a thing it can't price. And a thing a bank won't lend against is a thing the next buyer has to fund in cash, which shrinks that tiny pool one final, savage time. Put the 4 together, and the exit isn't a door. It's a keyhole. You only need one buyer, exactly one, to walk out clean. The problem is you have no idea when he'll appear, or whether he ever will, and every month you wait for him, the meter is still running. So where does that leave the dream? Not dead. It would be easy and cheap to end on, bunkers are stupid, don't buy one. That's not it. The impulse is real and human. The wish for a place where your family is safe when the systems fail is one of the oldest wishes there is, and there's nothing foolish in feeling it. The people who own these and stay sane are the ones who hold 2 truths at once: that the safety is real, and that the safety is not a thing you can purchase and possess. It's a state you keep alive, by hand, on a schedule, for as long as you want it to stay true. That's the whole misunderstanding, compressed. You think you're buying a fortress. You're signing up for a second job that pays nothing, never ends, and only reveals whether you did it well on the one day it's too late to start. You don't buy safety. You rent the obligation to keep it every month, for decades, for a day that may never come. And the moment you stop paying that rent, the fortress you own quietly turns back into what it always physically was underneath the dream. A very expensive hole in the ground, waiting.